everyone, in today's video I'm going to be painting this mushroom cottage in this magical forest using gouache paints. Now I am using my A5 sketchbook, and it is a watercolor sketchbook, and I'm using just a regular graphite pencil to do the initial sketches and just place all the different elements onto my paper. Now at this stage I wasn't sure if I wanted it to go completely onto the other page, but I wanted to have a bit of a flow from one side to the other. So I started off with a layer of the lightest color, which is a yellow green, which is going to be the light that's reflecting from, or that's shining in from the back in the depth of the trees and coming to the foreground. And as I build the layers forward, I will be going darker, and I'm just basically adding that, just washes of color for the grass, and just basically blocking in all the different areas, and also deciding to try to take it over to the other page as well. So I'm using a round brush for this. You can use whatever brush you're comfortable with, but I see using a round brush does the job. You can use different sizes of round brushes, or you can just use one and achieve a lot of different brush strokes and techniques depending on the amount of paint you use, the amount of water with your paint, as well as the pressure you're using when you are applying the paint to the brush. That all makes a difference to the number of different techniques you will have. Also, I'm bearing in mind that the trees in the distance will be lighter and less detailed, and as I move forward there'll be more details. So remember, always paint from back to front, so it'll be the background, and then you move slowly towards the foreground. Now at this stage I was just experimenting and letting the process of the creating process and painting process guide me. I was getting a feel for what I wanted the atmosphere to be like for this painting, how I wanted it to go onto the other side, adding a bit more details to the trees themselves. So all of these are things that I'm thinking as I'm painting, but I'm just basically letting my painting guide the way, and my intuition just lead me to create the painting. I'm adding a lot of different colors. I'm even adding some blues to the greens to get some of those darker greens, just basically laying out where I want the foliage to be. And you can see as I'm building up the layers, you're not seeing so much of the graphite lines showing through, because gouache can be opaque, and once you add multiple layers you will have more opaqueness, so you're just going to cover a lot of that. That's why I'm not too worried about those graphite lines showing through. Now I'm going in and I'm working on the mushroom house or little mushroom cottage, and I'm just adding a base layer for the entire piece, and then I'm going to build up the layers for the colors for the red as I go along. Now when you're working on any piece, it's good to let, or with any painting, it's good to let one area dry before moving on to do the next layer, because you can lift some of the paint up, or you can create a bit of a muddy color if you're mixing two different colors maybe. So let it dry and then go back over that area where you want to work on, and then come back to it later when it's dry. So you'll see I move around from one side to the other. I'm just all over the place, and I just want it to be completely dry before I go over those areas again. Also, pay attention to, in this respect, when you're working with where there's perspective or depth, remember that the details are more visible in the foreground than the background. And also keep all the objects, like these are the trees and the branches and boxes back, keep them lighter in the background and darker as you move forward. So you can see now I'm just starting to paint in some of those trees and create the little depth of the woods, and creating some of that brighter areas where the light is shining through the forest, and also working on the foreground. Now you can see I'm using adding some paint onto my brush and using it to add to the paper, and then I'm using my fingers just to basically smudge it around on the paper for the next layer. Now I'm going to add more details as I work through this, but this is just what I'm doing at the moment. Just trying to get the entire foreground of the grass covered, and basically using all the different variants of greens. You can see I'm adding some darker greens, mid-tones, as well as even some of the yellow greens, where the areas are going to have some really bright light that's going onto the ground. So I'm starting to work on the pathway, and I'm building up my layers. And that's the good thing about working with any medium. It's all a building or layering process. You need to slowly build your layers, then slowly build up the details and add the details. And it's not just I'm going to paint this area this color, and I'm going to paint, maybe paint the tree brown, paint the tree bark brown, paint the tree's leaves green, and just paint the mushroom red and brown for the bottom, and you're done. If you do that, you're going to look, your image of painting is going to look very flat. It's not going to look very three-dimensional. So by adding shadows like I did to the little cottage, it added a little of depth to the piece and made it look more three-dimensional, as well as adding variations in colors of the tree leaves and things. It adds more dimension to your piece and depth, and it actually looks like your trees are in, there's leaves overlapping one another as well. So you can see I went over the mushroom house, a little mushroom cottage, with some white gouache. That's just to really bring out those white little spots on the mushroom house, and then also on those little mushrooms that are growing on the foreground next door to the pathway. And I'm just adding in flowers randomly where I drew them. I'm just picking colors also randomly. Then I remembered the little snail that I put on the grass on the bottom right corner, so I just started painting in a base layer for him, and also adding some butterflies here and there. And then I thought that the flow is going on to the next page, and I just want to have something that links to that flow, that little green flowy line. So I decided to add a blue butterfly on to that page as well. Now, adding some details to the butterflies, I'm using a white jelly roll pen. That's just to get some details, as well as the black jelly roll pen, just to add some really fine lines. But I'm using it on dry gouache. The gouache has completely dried before I'm working with the pens on it. If you try to work on the gouache while it's still wet, you're going to just create lines on the gouache, on the area that you painted with the gouache, and you're not going to have any of that ink showing through. So now you can see I'm going in and adding some details to the butterfly. I am using color pencils for this part, and I'm not using paint. I just wanted to add some details with the color pencils, and also some variations in the blues as well. That was just me creating a little bit of a flow. Like you can see, the butterflies are flying around in the forest, and then one happened to fly out of the forest and onto the page. That created that little flow of green that's there. So that's what I was aiming to create. Just this little piece that has all these little magical elements to it, and has these a variety of different colors and depth, and I just wanted to add a lot of little things to it. I've done a mushroom painting, I think in the past. I have done one. I must say this one looks better. I definitely improved a lot. That's the thing with art, you're constantly improving, and even though I am a professional artist and I do art all the time, and I'm always creating, working in different mediums, I'm always practicing, learning new techniques, and sometimes my art doesn't turn out the way I want. Sometimes it turns out even better than I expected, but that's the fun part about creating and painting, drawing. Art is something that you never know what the outcome's going to be, but the most important thing is to keep practicing and enjoying your creating process. So you can see now I just added in some details to the flowers and the little grass, blades of grass around the foreground, and also some of the shadow areas and the centers of the flowers as well. Touched up on the little mushroom cottage as well. And basically just doing any touch-ups. So this is the stage where you look at your piece and you just feel what's missing, what needs to be added, and you just add that in and see how it looks. And there we have the final piece, and that is what it looks like. So I guess that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, don't forget to like and share. Feel free to comment below, and don't forget to subscribe. Till the next one, bye.